Hey everybody, how's it going? So I made this virtual music machine number 3, and I thought I'd put it out there and see what you guys thought about it. And there's a couple moving parts to it, so I kind of just want to go over all the different pieces and just kind of show you how everything works. So it's going to be a kind of a dry instructional video. Okay, so basically the idea is this is a music machine, and each one of these different paint pots here is a different musical instrument. Like the yellow one there is a sax, and then I've got cellos and oboes and all these different things. Over here in this corner, I've got drums, and each one of these things is a different instrument. So we've got like a bass and kick drum, snares, hi-hats, that sort of thing. Over here, we've got things for volume levels for the drums and the paint pots as a whole. And then also that thing back there is a tempo. And then these things are kind of cool. I like these things. These are for controlling what scale that you're going to be playing in. So say it's a C major, D minor, or a pentonic minor, or a blues scale, that sort of thing. These things are what's going to enable you to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the paint pots here. So basically what you can do is if you want to play one of them, you dip your hand into it, right? So you can see I dipped my hand into that, and then this little block out here came out yellow. Or let's say I'm going to dip my left hand into the pink, and it comes out pink, right? Okay, so there's that. Let's see. Let me configure stuff real quick. And we'll talk about that menu here in just a second. Okay, so basically what happens is if you can see that there's this note indicator, it's this vertical bar that it's kind of like it's attached to my controller. So what it is it tells me what note I'm going to be playing, or more specifically, it tells me when I'm going to change notes. So down here, I've got low notes. So if I pull this trigger and I start playing, I'll play a low note, and then as I move up, I'll be playing progressively higher notes. So give that a listen. Right? So just low notes to high notes. If you move up and down, you'll get up and down, high notes, low notes. Okay, so one thing about this is when I pull the trigger, I'll play this note that I'm on, but then after that, it's not going to keep playing the note. It only plays a note when I switch between those bars. Right? So the exception to this rule is if you move laterally, like horizontally. So as I move sideways, that's when it started playing the note over and over again. So between that and being able to go up and down, you can actually get a fair amount of variation in your rhythm. Yep. All right, so that's basically the big idea there. Now, there are a couple options when it comes to these paint pots. So if you look at the controller, you can see that there's this little button that's just above the trackpad. It's the menu button, right? So if I point at the paint bucket, I'll get a little laser that comes out, and if I push that button, I'll get this little menu. It says Instrument Settings. So basically what we've got here is whether it auto loops and whether it repeats the note. So the repeating the note, let's talk about that first. All right, so now with that turned on, right? So when it's pink, it's on. When it's black, it's off. So right now it's on, right? So if I pull the trigger, before it would only play the one note and then it just wait around for me. But now it'll just play every tick of the clock. Right? So that can be kind of fun. And depending on what you're doing, that might be nice. I tend to leave it off personally, but really it depends on what you want to do. All right. So next up, there is this ticks per beat. So this takes a little bit of explanation. So this is kind of like in your like sheet music. It's kind of like quarter notes, half notes, and eighth notes, that sort of thing, but just the reciprocal. All right, so check it out. We've got this clock. It's hanging out in ether, and it's basically kicking out a tick, if you will, a beat every so often. It's like dun, 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 dun. And when it does that, it sends a message to each one of the instruments, the drums, everything, and it's going to play that. Now, we can control the speed of that tick by that tempo knob over there. But what this means is this ticks per beat is how many of those ticks it's going to take before this thing actually plays a note. So let's see, what's a good way to do this? Let's do a repeated note. And then I'll be playing that, and then we'll listen to the speed of it, right? So it's pretty fast. Now, if I go to 2, it's going to be every other beat, so it's going to be half the speed. If I go to 4, it'll be half again, or a quarter of the original speed. All right, so on and so forth, all the way up to 8, which is incredibly slow. Now, that being said, you can actually use this to some good effect. So okay, actually, I'm going to control the tempo, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But real quick, just to talk about this auto loop here. Auto loop is basically, it allows me to paint in a brush stroke, and then when I let go of the trigger, it'll just repeat it. So watch this. So now it's repeating. All right, so that's cool. So I'm going to play in a note, and then this yellow, I don't know, hexagonal tower thingamabob over here is what I'm going to use to control the tempo. Now, the way I'm going to do that is, if you look on the side here, I've got this grip button. It's the thing on the side. It's normally right underneath your fingers. So if I point at something, I can pull on that grip, and then I can use it to move things. You've seen me move the paint buckets a couple times. That's how I'm doing it. So pretty much anything in here that you move, that's how you're doing it. All right, so I'm going to play a brush stroke. We're going to hear it's going pretty fast. And then I'm going to grab a hold of that thing, and I'm going to lower it. You're going to hear the tempo go down. Nice and slow. We'll bring it all the way up. It's going pretty fast, right? So, in this way, I can make this one go kind of slow, and I can make this one go stupid fast, right? Okay, so hopefully that made it clear. I was a little bit muddy on that. Cool. So you may have seen me flounder a little bit there. I tried to pick up this paint, and it wouldn't do anything. So here's the gist. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but basically, you can have a different instrument on each one of your hands, but you can only have that instrument on one hand. So for instance, I've got this yellow saxophone on my right hand. I cannot pick it up with my left hand because it's attached to this one. So if I want to get that one on my left hand, I kind of just have to ditch it off the right hand where it's in use. So if I pick up the blue, then I can pick up the yellow. So I don't know, that's not necessarily ideal, but you know, limitations of the program. Okay, so we've talked about how to play the different instruments. All right, so beyond that, we need to talk about the volume levels, right? So what happens is, like, again, using the grip button on the side, I can move this bucket up and down, and that's actually controlling the volume of this instrument. So let's paint a little bit with this, and we'll hear the sound, and then I'm going to lower it almost all the way to the bottom, but not actually all the way to the bottom. And you listen to the sound levels. So now it's really quiet, right? So that means I can paint in with a different instrument, and then I can kind of do solos, or I can crossfade between tracks, right? Piano's nice and loud, barely hear the sax. Now you can barely hear the piano, and the sax is nice and loud. So you can see it's repeating, it's doing the thing, right? If I grab the paint buckets and bring them all the way to the bottom so that they don't go any further, the sound stops and it just erases that track. So you can start over. Cool, rock on. So other than that, we've got the volume levels for it, which is this pink tower here. So if I paint in something, or if I paint in multiple instruments with it, and then I change that, that's going to change the volumes for all the paint buckets wholesale, right? Cool. So let's bring the volume down. So that brings them all down wholesale. You can turn it all the way down. You can't hear them at all, although it's still going. We haven't lost anything. We just aren't listening to it right now. All right, so let's turn them all off. Cool. So moved them all the way to the bottom, and now they're off. Okay, cool. So we've talked about those. Now let's talk about some of the fun stuff here. We've got these crazy balls over here, right? So I can move those around, again, using the grip button there. What these are is for change the musical scale, right? So pentatonic minors or blues scale or something like that. So let's check it out. So this one, let's mess around with it. Now to use this ball, I'm going to click the trigger and that's going to get it spinning. So that's how I know this one is active. If I click another one, that one will get to be spinning and that one will be active. All right, so let's look at this thing. It's got basically two sides. We've got this business here and this business up here. All right, so the first thing down here, this is like your root note. So if you see, this is like a keyboard, right? So we got C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, so on and so forth. It's just like a piano. So let's play some notes. All right. Let's make that thing go a little bit faster. Slowness is boring. All right. Now let's change the root note. Hear how it kind of went up? And down again. Cool, so that's just the root notes. That's kind of how you can control like a chord progression. You could set this one up with a C, and then this one with a D, and that one with an A, and then you could just go between them, right? So that's fun, but the part that I think is a whole lot more fun is this part up here. This is how you actually say where you want to play a major or a minor or a pentatonic or something like that. Basically what you can do is you can point at these things, and when they're up, that's when it's going to play that note. So we're on C, so it's going to play the C, not the D, the E, so on, right? So what can happen with this is, since you can change this on the fly, you can actually get kind of a different sound out of your brush stroke without actually changing the brush stroke. So I'm going to play a little note here, and then I'm going to mess around with that. And you can hear how it changes the kind of the tone of things, right? Alright, so let's listen to this. So I've only got these 3 notes selected, so it's only going to play 3 actual notes. So just the 2. Or just 1. Then it's just going to play on octaves. So I think that's fun. I have a lot of I have a lot of fun actually just messing around with that, changing between these chords and seeing what it does to the sound of the song. Okay, but in the interest of time, let's get on. So over here we've got the drum machines, right? Now the drum machines, these are basically like almost like your basic sequencer. So you see the little pegs around the outside? If I point at that, I get the little laser beam that comes out, and then if I pull the trigger on the back here, then I'll turn that one on. So when it's like pink like that, that means it's on. So, and this thing right here, this is volume levels for the drums. Just like the pink one was the volume levels for the paint pots. So let's bring this up. All right, I hear it's a lot louder, right? So let's add a little bit here. So another thing you can do is if you just want to mute the whole track without actually turning off the little pegs, you just point at the middle gong thing and pull the trigger, and it'll toggle that track on and off. That works for all of them. So we can also turn on the other tracks, and they jive with the position, right? So let's turn this one on. Oops. Accidentally turned on my saxophone. All right. All right, so we got that one going. Let's turn this guy back on. Cool. So these are all different instruments. I've got some bongos and some wood blocks, bass drum, snares, that sort of thing. Cool. So these are controlled by the same tempo that controlled these things, right? Cool. So that's really all there is to those things. You can use these at the same time with the paint buckets. So that's the gist of things. If you guys end up actually using this thing, or you want to know more about it, or you want to tell me I did things completely wrong and suggest a different way to do it, let me know. In any case, talk to you guys later.